How can you maximally exploit recreational players to boost your win rate at the poker table? You asked for it, and here it is. This is my first vlog from the famous Vic in London, where I'm going to play in a 1-3 game today. I will explain my reasoning behind all my decisions, and hopefully I can win a few pounds. So let's get right into it. Already in the very first hand we have a few important live poker concepts. I look down at pocket nines in the low jack and the nit in early position makes it 10 pounds. Normally this is a 3-bet or fold for me in this situation, but because he's such a tight opener and because I know that the hijack is a weak calling station, I decide to flat here. And the hijack indeed obliges. I want him in the pot. He is in the pot now. He calls as well. Also the cutoff calls and the big blind calls as well. So we go 5 ways to a flop, typical live poker situation. And look at this, bingo, 9-8-4 with 2 clubs, and the early position raiser now checks. I could consider checking, but I don't think it's very likely for someone to stab, especially not the weak calling station behind me, and I want him in the pot. If I wait for someone else to stab, which would be the cutoff, and he is a loose aggressive player, the problem is that if I then check raise, then the hijack will be out. So I decide to lead out for 35 here into a pot of around 50, and both the hijack and the cutoff actually call. The turn is not ideal. It's the 10 of clubs. It brings in all sorts of draws. I could continue betting, and actually I think in hindsight I probably should have, but I just decided to check, and both players behind me checked as well. On the river, which is a total brick, I think I now definitely have the best hand. The question is just how much they would pay, and because I have such a weak player behind me, I just got a bit greedy. I went 105, and unfortunately both of them folded very quickly. Don't know what they had, but at least, hey, it's a good start. Just a few minutes later we have the next small stakes exploit. We look down at a7 of clubs in early position and we raise, but we only raise to 8 pounds, although everyone else raises to something like 12 to 15, but we have a speculative hand under the gun. I think raising to 8 is great, and we have 4 callers, including the calling station from the previous hand. And look at this flop, again, great one. King 8 deuce all clubs, we have the nuts. And normally I would check pretty much my entire range in such a position, but if we have weak players behind us calling stations and we have the nuts, we have to build the pot here. We might even get raised if someone has a weaker flush, so we bet out 20, and the fish in the hijack calls. He's the only one, and now annoyingly it's the 3 of clubs on the turn, and I think now I probably can't make that much anymore. I still bet out 30 pounds, and to my surprise the guy just snap jams for 210 pounds. I can't call quickly enough. He turns over jack 10 of clubs, and we obviously win this one. He's drawing dead, and it's a great one to win, but what is he doing here to jam with a jack high flush once there are 4 clubs out there? The weak calling station reloaded for 250 pounds. He's now on the button, and we are in the hijack with pocket 7s. We raise it up to 10 pounds. He of course calls, and the big blind calls as well. And look at this flop, 9-7-3. We have middle set. We can't complain about how we're running so far. I make it 30 pounds here. Definitely want to build the pot, and the button calls. The turn is 3, so we now have a boat, and he's only got 115 behind because he already lost another pot since he reloaded. So I just try to squeeze some value out of him. I make it 50, and he jams for 115. Obviously I snap, and look at this, he has pocket 9s for a bigger boat than me. Okay, well done. Now we lose this one. We have to give him something, but we're still running pretty good, I think, because I would have lost a much bigger stack if he had been deeper. This next one's an interesting one, and let me know if you would have played it any differently. So we open pocket queens in the hijack to 20 pounds, and yes, I know, earlier I opened a 7 suited to 8 pounds, now I'm opening queens to 20 pounds, but that is because I don't care about balance here. I know the fish is on the button will call, and he does call even 20 pounds, and also the small blind loose aggressive player calls. 3 ways to a flop, not ideal. King 7-6. I decide to check because I think the small blind could stab at it on the turn. I prefer to do that rather than getting called by potentially a king here, and I think I don't have a 3 streets of value hand anyway, so here we just check it through. The turn is a jack, and I think in hindsight maybe now would be the time to bet once the small blind checks again to me, but I decided in game to just check again, and the fish on the button checks as well. And now the river is a 9. I think we most likely have the best hand at this point, and now the small blind bets 30 pounds. And I was considering potentially raising, but I think he is good enough to fold a jack or weaker here. And I think I would isolate myself against a really strong range once he bets half pot. And the other thing is, I know that the fish on the button is capable of overcalling with a weak hand. I'm pretty sure I'll win this one, so I just call, and indeed the button does overcall, and the small blind says he has a jack. We turn over our pocket queens, and then the button turns over ace queen for just ace high. He overcalled with ace high, so we'll just ship another big one. This next one is a bit more like an online hand, and note that we are 1,000 pounds deep, so around 330 big blinds. And now the nit from our very first hand, he raises it to 15 on the button, so I know he's not messing around in this spot. And I look down at pocket kings in the small blind, happy days. We make it 65 in there. I could probably have gone even slightly bigger, and now he 4-bets to 145. And I was for a brief moment considering whether I want to shove here, but then I thought he would probably fold queens, jacks, ace king in that spot, so we would isolate ourselves against pocket aces basically if we jam here. And yes, we could get him to fold quite a bit of equity, especially if he has ace king, but on the other hand, I do not want to isolate myself against aces. So I just call the 4-bet, although I'm not loving it. I'm out of position, and I might be playing pocket kings for 330 big blinds. But on the other hand, I don't think he will triple barrel here with a bluff. So I think I can probably fold kings at some point. But the flop comes jack 7-4, so now we lose to aces, we lose to jacks. I don't think we'll lose to anything else. And he now makes it 75, which is basically nothing. So yeah, he could be doing this with aces, but he could be doing this with anything. I just call. The turn is a 6, I check, he checks behind, and the river is a deuce, and I'm now in a pretty tough spot, and actually it wasn't quite as tough as I thought in-game, but I thought if he has a hand like ace-king, I can't get any value from him, and he will not bluff at it. If he has a hand like queens or, well, what else? Jacks, I mean, we will lose to jacks. So basically, it's only queens that we could get value from in this spot, or maybe the occasional pocket tens if we make it really small. But there is a tiny chance that he would even turn that into a bluff, although I really don't think that he would play for so much money and as a bluff there and turn tens or queens into a bluff. But I decide to check, and he checks behind. But the problem is, if he bets pretty big here, I will have to fold, because he just doesn't have any bluffs at this point, I think, when he bets big there, because in this hand he turns over ace-king, we ship it, I'm very happy about that, but it's just really a very tricky spot to play against such a player. And here is the most important small stakes exploit in action. We raise 7-5 of hearts on the button to 10 pounds, and the small blind, who is our friend that we stacked earlier and he stacked us back, he calls. Flop is 7-3 deuce. We make about a half pot continuation bet in position. He calls. On the turn 9, I decide to just check it behind, and then the 10 on the river, he checks again to me. I still think I have the best hand, and this is now very important. In Solverland, or whenever you play against a good player, you should not bet small in position for value here. But against this kind of player who would probably never ever check raise me as a bluff in this spot, I can go for thin value also, because I think he calls quite light. So that's why I just went 10 pounds. That's a quarter pot in position. That's basically a sin in GTO poker. But I went for it and he snapped me off with ace high, and we shipped this one and we made an extra 10 pounds because we were able to extract some more thin value on the river. Now I've moved to a different table, and brace yourselves for some real fun here. So we have this player just to our right who is a dream. He is an extremely loose calling station. However, you'll see he will turn into a bit of a maniac as well. So this guy opens the hijack to 12 pounds, and I know normally he makes it a bit bigger when he has a big hand. I have pocket nines and I make it 36. He calls out of position. The flop comes ace 8-5 rainbow. I make it 25 pounds because this guy can really have an 8, he can have a 5, he can have pocket 4s there, and he will call, so definitely able to get some value. I make it 25, he calls. The turn is a 6. Now I think I'm kind of running out of value, so we both check, and the river is a 4. He checks, and I think, probably I could have bet here, but I didn't know how loose he was at that time, so I just checked behind. He says he has a 5, and we of course win it with pocket 9s. Round 2 against this player. This time under the gun opens to 12 and he calls. We are next to act with pocket 10s. We make it 50. The original raiser folds, but the loose calling station does what he always does. He calls. Flop is not ideal. Ace, jack, jack. All over cards to my 10s, but I still think the same is true as before. If he has some low pocket pair, if he has king queen, if he has queen 10, probably even if he has 9-8 with a backdoor, he will call here. So I make it 25, he calls. The turn is a 9. Now I think we're kind of running out of value. He checks, we check. The river is a queen, and he checks, and again, now with even more overcards, I definitely have to check at this point. And in this casino, unfortunately, I have to show first as the last aggressor. So I don't know what he had, but we win it. Next round against our friend to our right. This time we have pocket 8s under the gun. We raise it up to 8 pounds, and yes, I'm being very transparent again here. I'm only opening to 8 when I have a speculative hand, but I don't think anyone has noticed so far, so not a problem. And indeed, the big blind, our friend, calls. Heads up to a flop of ace, ace 4 rainbow. Not ideal, and I don't know why I didn't bet here. I should definitely have bet, but for some reason now I thought I bet a bit too much and it's getting a bit too thin, so I just check. The turn is another 4 and he checks again. I think now I do have to go for value. I bet and he calls, and the river is another ace, so now there is a full house on the board, and I think at this point I can get greedy because he will think that I'm just trying to steal the pot if I bet big here. So I bet 40 and he thinks for about 2 seconds and then he folds, and he does show a 4, so he did have a full house already on the turn, but he thought I might have the ace, and now on the river he might think that I have quads there, so unfortunately he does find the fold this time. And now look how frustrating poker can be sometimes. We have pocket kings in the small blind, and the hijack raises to 10 pounds. And the guy to our immediate right, he has played about 75 to 80% of hands tonight. And look at this, he just folds now. We raise it up with pocket kings, make it 45 in the small blind, and the hijack folds. So we get a tiny pot when we finally have a big pre-flop hand. In this next hand, we're battling against him once again. He now raises it up to 12 pounds in the low jack. We have ace king offsuit in the hijack and we make it 40. I'm sizing up. I could probably have gone even slightly bigger. He called. 10-6-3 is not an amazing flop. We do have some showdown value and I do think that he can call with weaker hands here. So I just decide to check after he checks. The turn is an 8 and he now bets 50 pounds, and I think now in hindsight I should probably fold. I haven't seen this guy bluff at all yet. So what's he betting here? All I have is 2 overcards really, and yes, I have the ace of clubs, but for some reason I just didn't really want to fold here and I called the 50 pounds, which is actually quite a big bet. But yes, I do have position, but it's unlikely that he would fold anything here if I try to bluff him on the river. But then the river comes as the 9 of clubs and he checks. And I think this is a situation where you can attempt to bluff a calling station. There's about 180 pounds in the pot and I now made it 165 pounds, really saying that I have a flush in this spot. And he tanks for a while, and because although he is super loose, he does recognize that I am a rather tight player and potentially a good player. So he lays down and he shows face up 10-8 for 2 pairs, and I managed to get him off that, not even over betting, but I think this bet just looks so strong there. It could have been something like aces, kings, queens or so in what he thinks, and then he could have called with 2 pair there, but I think he just really gave me a lot of respect in this spot, so I was very happy to take this big one down. But I think I might have tilted this player with the last hand where he folded 2 pair, and this is going to bite me now potentially. So there is a good older gentleman in the low jack who makes it 10 pounds, and he's one of the best 65-year-olds that I've seen in my player pool. And then of course our loose calling station, this time in the small blind, calls as usual, and we have pocket queens in the big blind. We raise it up to 50 and both of them call. The flop isn't too bad, 9-8 deuce rainbow. I decide to make a c-bet because I can definitely get called by a lot of weaker hands, especially by the small blind. And the player in the low jack calls here, and now look at this. The small blind now makes it 175 pounds, and we are really deep. We are at about 800-900 pounds deep in this hand, and it's such a difficult situation here. As I said, I have not seen this guy bluff at all. He has been hitting 2 pairs and boats just all night. Like, I'm the only one he hasn't actually stacked yet because he's just running like on fire. And now he makes it 175. That is a significant bet. And as I said, he is a passive calling station. That's all I've seen from him in the last hour and a half or so. And then I also have to worry about this other guy who might already have a set there or so. I don't know, I still thought maybe I have the best hand, but I decided to lay it down just because of the dynamics and this guy, I hadn't seen him bluff at all. So I fold and the other guy in the low jack decides to call. The turn is a 5 of spades, bringing in a flush draw, and now the small blind jams for a few £100 there. And the other player just tanks for a while, and then he folds and he shows pocket jacks, and now the small blind shows 10 deuce offsuit. So he called pre-flop, he called a £50 3-bet out of position with 10 deuce offsuit. Then he flopped bottom pair and he went to take on this super aggressive line against 2 fairly tight and good players. It worked out for him. I wasn't tilted, but yeah, come on. I folded the best hand here in this three-way pot, but I still think, because I hadn't seen him bluff and I couldn't really think that he is that tilted after he had to fold, or he folded the 2 pair in the previous hand. But yeah, this one wasn't great for me. This next hand is probably the most controversial one of the session. We are under the gun with King-Queen offsuit in a straddled pot. It is quite a loose open, but I still thought I can make it a profitable one. So I make it 15 and only the straddle calls, which of course is again our friend with 10-8 offsuit, with 10-deuce offsuit and so on. Let's see what he shows up this time with. So the flop is queen 3 deuce, but all of them spades. I still think we have a mandatory value bet against this player, so I make it 15, half pot, he calls. The turn is an offsuit 7. I think I can go for another street of value, definitely. I go 40 and he calls again, and the river is the 6 of diamonds. And yes, this is getting extremely thin now, but I still thought against this guy, he has been a calling station for most of the day, I have to go for another street of value. Now, I don't know in hindsight if it was so good. I think I probably made it too big. I made it 75. If I go something like 45 or 50, I have a better chance of getting called by a weaker queen, or maybe a 7 or a 6 or whatever he rivered there, if he had some spade going with it or so. And so I make it 75 and he snap calls and turns over 6-3 offsuit for a rivered 2 pair. And I lose this one, and it was quite annoying. So I'm not entirely sure that it was such a big mistake, but it might still have been a little bit too thin. What do you think? Last hand of the day, and our friend to our right decided to straddle again. We have pocket 7s under the gun. We open to 15. A player in middle position calls, and the straddle calls, of course, as well. Flop 9-8-4 with 2 clubs. Not the best flop for our hand, but thankfully it just checks through. And then when the board pairs on the turn, the straddle checks, we check, and now the middle position player bets 40. So bear in mind there's 48 in the pot, and he now bets quite close to the pot. So he's actually quite polarized, so maybe he is still a bit merged with a 9 here, or well, a 4 or whatever, but in general he's saying that he has a pretty big hand, and for some reason I didn't really believe him. After the straddle folded, I decided to call this, even though it's out of position, but something didn't feel right with his big bet. And then the river is an offsuit 5, and now, yeah, 6-7 gets there. However, we block that heavily, and so we check. And if he bets this one again, I might consider calling, bluff catching, but depends on the size as well. But he just checks behind, and he announces that he has a 4. Turns out he had king 4 suited there, and we take this one down. So quite a nice profit in the end. In this session I played for 11 hours and I paid £142 in rake and another £27 for promotions. So in total that's £169 paid for rake and promotions, but I still made a really nice profit of £552, which is an hourly rate of £50, which is pretty good for a 1-3, I would say.